Maureen O'Hara really hated him more than anyone. Maureen O'Hara, born Maureen Fitzsimons on August 17, 1920 in Ranelagh, a quiet suburb of Dublin, Ireland, showed an early and clear love for acting and the arts. She grew up in a warm Irish family that really encouraged creativity, and she ended up training at the Abbey Theatre, Ireland's famous national theatre. There she learned a lot about acting, speaking clearly, and using her voice, which helped her a lot later on. With her bright red hair, fair skin, and lively green eyes, Maureen had a special kind of beauty that didn't always show up well in old black-and-white movies, but it became super famous when color films came along. Her big break happened in the late 1930s when famous actor Charles Laughton noticed her. He loved her talent and strong presence on screen, so he signed her to his company and put her in the movie Jamaica Inn in 1939, directed by Alfred Hitchcock. That movie made people around the world notice her, and right away she got her first Hollywood part in The Hunchback of Notre Dame in 1939, playing the beautiful but sad Esmeralda opposite Laughton's Quasimodo. After that, moving from British movies to Hollywood was really easy for her, and she quickly became one of the most exciting and interesting stars of her time. Maureen O'Hara was loved not just for her amazing looks, but for the special mix of strength, class, and smartness she brought to every role. Back then, a lot of actresses only got to play quiet or pretty but boring parts, but Maureen said no to that. She picked roles with real strong women who had fire, could handle tough times, and weren't afraid to stand up for themselves. Her great acting in movies like How Green Was My Valley in 1941, which won the Oscar for Best Picture, The Black Swan in 1942, and Sinbad the Sailor in 1947 showed how good she was at many different kinds of roles, and she became a true big star of Hollywood's golden years. Some of her very favorite and longest partnerships were with famous director John Ford and huge star John Wayne. She and Wayne had a real close friendship and amazing chemistry on screen, and together they made classic movies like Rio Grande in 1950, The Quiet Man in 1952, and McClintock in 1963. Of all those, The Quiet Man is usually called their best one, with Maureen's amazing performance as Mary-Kate Danaher, a proud, strong, and fiery Irish woman. People still love her emotional power, her independence, and that beautiful love story. Her acting full of passion, standing up for herself, and real heart made her movies special, and people still watch them today. Outside of movies, Maureen O'Hara was famous for always being honest and never giving in to the strict rules of the old Hollywood studios. When everyone else was expected to follow along quietly, she stood up and demanded fair treatment. She only took roles that felt right to her and matched her values. She turned down scripts that felt cheap or insulting, and people respected her for having such strong character. She also refused to change how she looked or lose her Irish accent, and she proudly said she was the only leading lady in Hollywood who got to keep her real Irish way of speaking. As time went on, Maureen kept doing movies and TV shows carefully, while also taking care of her family and running businesses, like an airline she started with her third husband, Charles Blair, who was a great World War II pilot and later flew big commercial planes. Sadly, Charles died in a plane crash in 1978, but Maureen stayed strong. Later she wrote her honest book called "'Tis Herself," where she shared the full story of her brave, independent, and full-of-spirit life. In 2014, the Academy gave Maureen O'Hara an honorary Oscar to honor her whole amazing career and how much she changed movies. At the ceremony, she looked as elegant and strong as ever, showing everyone that her spirit was still bright even after so many years. Back in 1939, when she was only 19, Maureen got married for the first time to English movie producer George H. Brown. They met while making Alfred Hitchcock's Jamaica Inn, and a quick romance started on the set. Young and full of dreams, she decided to marry him in secret because of all the pressure from the movie world. But soon it was clear the marriage happened too fast and wasn't right for the long run, so they got it officially ended in 1941. That experience stayed with her while she was still figuring out her life and her rising Hollywood career. That same year she got married again, this time to American director William Houston Price. They got close while working together on Dance, Girl, Dance. At first things looked good, but slowly the marriage fell apart because of big problems, especially his serious drinking problem. Even with the hard times, they had a daughter together, Bronwyn Bridget Price, born on June 30th, 1944. Being a mom became one of the happiest parts of Maureen O'Hara's life. She loved her daughter so much and worked hard to give her a warm, steady home. But the problems in the marriage kept growing. William Houston Price's drinking caused a lot of sadness and mess at home. After almost 10 years of trying, Maureen, who was always strong and independent, decided to end the marriage in 1951. The divorce hurt a lot, but it also made her even more determined to handle her movie work and raise her daughter alone. In the years after that, Maureen had a long and loving relationship with Enrique Parra, a rich Mexican banker and important political person. It lasted from 1953 to 1967, and it was one of the biggest parts of her personal life. He was charming and strong, and he showed her a whole new world of style, culture, and international life. They never got married, but they stayed together almost 15 years, and it gave her some calm during a rocky time. In the end, different backgrounds and public pressure probably caused them to separate, but she always talked about him with love and kindness even years later. It wasn't until 1968, when she was 48, that Maureen O'Hara found what many people think was her real true love. In 1968, she married Charles F. Blair, Jr., a very successful pilot who had been a U.S. Air Force general, helped start transatlantic flights, and became head pilot for Pan Am Airlines. He also started his own seaplane company in the Caribbean. Maureen loved his smart mind, brave heart, and sense of adventure. They had a marriage full of friendship and respect, and he helped her feel okay about stepping away from fame for a quieter life. A few years after they married, Maureen decided to stop acting and instead helped with his flying business and enjoyed a peaceful break from Hollywood. They moved to the U.S. Virgin Islands and lived happily together. Then in 1978, after only 10 years of marriage, Charles died in a terrible plane crash while flying one of his seaplanes. The loss broke her heart, and soon after she also got very sick with uterine cancer. True to how strong she always was, Maureen faced the cancer bravely, had surgery, and got completely better. Even after losing Charles, she kept going with quiet strength and dignity, always carrying love for the people who mattered most in her life. The red-haired Irish actress, known for her strong will and shining presence, was so much more than just a movie star. Maureen O'Hara was one of the first women in Hollywood to openly stand up against the bad, exploitative side of the studio system. When actresses were supposed to be quiet and do whatever powerful men wanted, she said no. She wouldn't put up with the creepy behavior that was too common back then. Her honesty and refusal to give in made some people scared of her, and others respect her a laissez-faire. Long before people started talking openly about these things, Maureen's warnings about the bad guys in Hollywood were like an early sign of today's movements that fight against abuse. During the 1940s and 1950s, she worked with the biggest names like director John Ford and stars John Wayne and Tyrone Power. But behind all the glamour, Maureen quietly dealt with harassment and wrong treatment from powerful executives and producers. She chose to fight back instead of staying quiet. In interviews later on, she said her career actually suffered because she wouldn't go along with what people called the casting couch. In a very direct 1957 comment, she said she got insulted, humiliated, and basically blacklisted for not letting studio bosses and producers touch her. That was a big thing to say back then, when women who spoke up usually got shut down fast. Even in her older years, through interviews and her book, Maureen kept talking openly about bad behavior, even when it involved famous people in movies. One of the hardest relationships was with John Ford, the director who helped make her career big, but who also showed the mixed-up and difficult side of old Hollywood. John Ford is seen as one of the greatest directors ever. His movies like The Grapes of Wrath, Stagecoach, and The Searchers helped create the Western style and shaped American movies in their golden age. But behind his great work was a man who could be very angry, moody, and mean, and he often took his problems out on the people around him, especially actors. Maureen felt that hard side of him more than most. They made several movies together, especially The Quiet Man in 1952, which is loved for its beautiful romance, its picture of Ireland, and the wonderful chemistry between Maureen and John Wayne. But while the movie looked warm and fun, things behind the camera were much darker. Later, Maureen talked openly about how Ford wasn't just tough. He was emotionally cruel, manipulative, and sometimes abusive. She remembered times when he would embarrass her in front of everyone on set for no reason, acting controlling, rude, and jealous more and more. Maureen came to think that Ford had secret feelings for her that she didn't return. And because of his strict Catholic background, he couldn't handle it, so it turned into anger. Instead of dealing with his feelings, he used his power to scare and control her. In one really upsetting story, Maureen said he once slapped her while they were filming and said it was part of his directing style. Back in the 1940s and 1950s, people sometimes accepted that kind of thing, but Maureen never did, and she let him know she never would. Instead of backing down when he tried to scare her, Maureen stood tall and refused to be made small or quiet. She later said her fearlessness was exactly what made Ford so focused on her. He was mad at her, but also respected her deep down, even if he didn't want to. Maureen's choice to talk openly about Ford's bad behavior when Hollywood was run by powerful men shows how brave she really was. She never tried to destroy Ford's reputation or say his movies weren't great. Instead, she gave an honest picture of a complicated man who could make beautiful art and also be very cruel, someone full of passion but hurt by his own problems. Maureen also shared how saying no to wrong advances cost her jobs and chances. She remembered important people warning her she would get shut out of Hollywood if she didn't play along. But she stayed true to herself, believing in her talent and doing what she thought was right. Some newspapers were shocked by how direct she was, but many more people admired her for not giving up her self-respect. Growing up in Ireland with strong Catholic beliefs about dignity, Maureen brought those values into the tough movie world and never let them go. She kept working the way she wanted, picking roles that showed her strength, fiery women, proud moms, and very independent ladies. Her work in The Quiet Man, Miracle on 34th Street, and How Green Was My Valley showed both her talent and how tough she was. Off-screen, she always asked for fairness and respect, something very few actresses back then felt they could do. And that helped make her remembered as a woman with amazing strength. Maureen O'Hara paid a big price for her courage, but she kept going, and in the end, she won. Her standing up helped open the door for other women who later spoke out against bad treatment in movies. Long before the Me Too movement and way before actresses like Rose McGowan and Ashley Judd talked about it, Maureen already told the truth about the ugly side of fame. Back then, lots of people ignored what she said, but now everyone sees she was right. In her later years, when Hollywood started looking at its own bad history, Maureen got new respect not just for her acting, but for her independence and bravery. She lived life her own way and never traded her values for quick success. Her legacy lives on in her movies and in how she chose to live. On October 24, 2015, Maureen O'Hara passed away peacefully in her sleep at her home in Boise, Idaho, at the age of 95. She died of natural causes, ending a life almost 100 years long that was full of movie success and personal strength. Maureen left a huge mark on Hollywood. With her bright red hair, stunning beauty, and roles as strong, independent women, she became one of the most loved actresses ever. Movies like The Quiet Man, How Green Was My Valley, and Miracle on 34th Street keep her place in movie history forever. Even when she was older, Maureen still stood for grace, strength, and being a trailblazer. In her last years, she stayed out of the spotlight, enjoying the quiet life she always wanted. She stopped acting in the 1970s to focus on family and her own things, but her influence as someone who helped women in film still touches audiences and people who study movies. Maureen was buried at Arlington National Cemetery in Virginia, says T to her husband, Charles Blair. They married in 1968, and he was a big part of her later life, a partner who gave her happiness, friendship, and adventure. His sudden death in the 1978 plane crash left a huge empty space, and choosing to be buried with him was her way of honoring their love and their life together. By resting beside him at Arlington, she also showed respect for his service to the country, leaving behind a final memory of her deep courage, heart, and dignity.